Okay, welcome everybody. We are here for the live session for day 2, and I am so pleased to be here. I was really nervous that nobody would come yesterday, and so many of you showed up. And again, so many people are showing up again. So I'm hoping this means what we're talking about is resonating, and you're learning not just from our speakers, but from the skills that I shared yesterday. So welcome back. And I have my kind of notes in my agenda, so I'm going to do my best to stick to all my speaking points and so on. So welcome and welcome back for those of you who are just joining us and who are maybe watching in the future. Welcome as well. I'm so happy to have you as a part of this, and I'm hoping that the skills we're talking about and the great speakers and their tidbits of wisdom are just going to be amazing for you to set up this foundation for yourself to set the stage for your own thriving. And if you don't know me, I am Anuradha Kotha. I use pronouns Anuradha or they, them, and I am the Chief Liberation Officer here at the Kotha Constellation. And we basically work with individuals and teams to help them basically understand what kind of indoctrination has come in from capitalism and colonialism, and how to shift that paradigm so we can do our work, whatever that work is, paid or unpaid labor in the world, in a way that is rooted in collective liberation for all of us. So that is the work that I'm bringing to the table. Today we have one of our speakers, Miranda, joining us. So I wanted to bring her up on, so you can come say hi, and I'll pin you so we can all see your face, Miranda.
Okay, hi there, everyone. So nice to see your face again today, Anuradha, and everyone here. This is so wonderful. So yes, what can I tell you about art making and setting the stage for thriving in our conversation that we had?
Yeah, just, I think the thing that people maybe need to know about is that that these materials are found around the house, and the impact it can have to be taking that pressure of capitalism off from the creation process, right? That we can just be creating to create. You want to tell us a little bit about those things?
Yes, sure, I do. As an artist, I'm always exploring ways that I can do things differently in this world of capitalism that we live in. And within the system of capitalism, art making and art collecting has somewhat been known for the elite. And so I am here to break through that binary and kind of think of ways that we can make art every day as a playful event, and also as a way for us to connect back to our bodies and to ourselves and to the earth. My main things that I love to talk about, and some of what we talked about in our conversation, is that art making is for everyone. You don't have to have a special studio or a special room or even a special desk to make art. You can make art in this little area that we have in front of Zoom. I'm sure you have some sort of flat area or even a book that you could make art on top of. And then that we can find art materials at low cost. And there are even some art materials that we might even have around the house. For example, coffee or coffee grounds, or our tea from the morning time. Maybe you have a little bit left over in your cup and it's very concentrated now with that tea bag. That's a wonderful way to make marks. Here is an example of some things that I did with coffee. So you can think about different things around your house that might be useful. Everyone's got ballpoint pens or pencils, something to write with. Those are easy art tools. And then I think the other thing that's most important to me is that we can make art without the concern about the outcome or the product. We can make art to enjoy the process and sometimes it may be something that we never show anybody else. It might be just for us, and that is okay. And I really like to express that in my own art making, making it a daily practice or a consistent practice, at least. I don't want to put pressure on people to make art daily, but I think consistently making art for ourselves is a way we can set the stage for thriving. So that's what I have to share.
Thanks so much for sharing about that, Miranda. It's so great to have you in our live session. Thanks for giving those really those points that we can now maybe take away. In your full 20-minute presentation, you share a lot more, and I'm going to share even more with the I'm getting a little flustered myself right now. I can feel that. Let me just take a breath, But you share a list of things that you might have around the house that people can use for art making. And we have a really excellent discussion about capitalism and art making in our thing. So I hope that people tune into that discussion. Thanks so much, Miranda.
Thank you, friend. This has been such a wonderful thing for me also to kind of unfold and explore. So thank you. And thank you for gathering all these awesome speakers.
Thank you. Yes, it's been such a pleasure and a joy to work with all of you. All right, so we had that amazing special guest today, Miranda, and you'll want to check out her talk. All right, so let me go back to my talking points. All right, so yesterday we had talked about the skills around admitting your truth. And one of the kind of summary bullet point that I wrote about that is, what are your signs of burnout? Admitting where are you means understanding what are your signs of burnout. Being able to say, I'm struggling, this is not working. Those are signs. Those are things you can start to use to identify, hey, what is my truth right now? And then the next thing we had talked about yesterday was determining that low tide. So where are you in that? And we want to set systems up or ideas up or paradigms or the way we approach things in a way, especially for those of us that are spoonies, chronically ill, chronically in pain, neurodivergent, and so on. We might need to really consider, what can I do regularly from that low tide place? So that might be our capacity, it might be our emotional space, it might be whatever. What can we regularly show? This is not about consistency and beating ourselves up. This is setting up systems to understand where are we and what can we realistically do on a regular basis to move the needle forward for us, for ourselves, and being honest with that. Setting that as your set point instead of this huge hurdle that you couldn't possibly make even on a good day. That is not a good metric for us to be tying our life to. So, all right. So today I wanted to talk about two more: determine your needs and resource yourself. So I'm hoping that I get through these, and I will try not to speak too fast, although I know when I am nervous, I speak even faster. All right. So what are your needs? And this is where we have that honest conversation. Once again, like I mentioned yesterday in the other session, it is not a matter of a goal-setting activity. It can be. And if you're resourced enough to do that, great. Do a planning session, a quarterly planning session, a monthly one, an annual one. It makes sense. But when we're in that really low state, when we are overwhelmed, what can we realistically do? If we don't have a lot of spaciousness in our calendar, how can we rewrite our whole lives? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? So if you have 10 minutes, work with it in that time, right? If you have quiet moments, like oftentimes I was awake at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, it would be whatever pondering I could do. Occasionally I would do all the work of turning on the light and, going to another room and taking some notes. But generally it was whatever I could ponder. That's the space I had. So really determining what your needs are. You look at your project, you look at your, you look at your list of ideas or projects you might be wanting to work on. What does it really take to do that? If we're looking at our finances, what does it really take? I see so many people regularly who don't have an idea of what their budget should look like. What needs do they have in terms of their paycheck, or what needs do they have for their hourly rate as a business owner? We need to be really clear on what are these needs. And the needs might not always be financial in that case. We might be able to say, what benefits do I need? Or what sort of time off do I need? Or, what kind of flexibility do I need so I can tend to other obligations like family things or personal things or fitness goals or whatever else that might be on your list. So really it's getting honest, looking at what is and what you want it to be, and looking in that gap analysis. And it's not trying to solve the whole gap in one day. It is very much taking that next step and determining what the needs are at this particular moment in time. And so I have a couple questions here. What are your tangible needs when you're in that dark place? And for me, I consistently was thinking about my needs in terms of pain relief, or the need to sleep, right? This is really base needs, or what is the absolute minimum I need to accomplish what I need to in business to keep things moving forward in that, or this is what my accountant needs. So that's a need, and I need to take care of these sorts of things. So what is the need I need to be able to meet that request that's coming in for me? So it's really getting this is not going to be global. It's going to be, where are you suffering? Where is the struggle the greatest? And being clear on that need, because that's where the gap is. The gap is where the widest gap is you're going to see the biggest relief by just starting to tend to it. Right. But sometimes this is the teacher I didn't really like in middle school. No shade, but she wasn't a favorite, but she had these little sayings on the wall and she'd make us memorize them. I only remember to like 3 or 4, but it was 10 hints. And one of the hints was, they were contradictory, but it was a very helpful set of goals. One was do the easiest first. And the next one was do the hardest first. And sometimes it makes sense in our lives to gain momentum and do the simplest task, to build up the muscle, to get going, to get ourselves interested, right? With my neurodiverse brain, that helps sometimes. But then there's other times where I need to do the opposite and focus on doing the hardest first, because then if I finish the biggest hump of this task, then everything else is downhill and it can move pretty quickly, right? So using a diversity of strategies here really matters for determining what our needs are. And this is even before you start to take action. I'm already talking about action a little bit, but here I just want you to have the awareness and to be writing this down. What are your lifelines in your life that you can call on? What are the needs? And I'll talk more about these in the next part. So the next one is resource yourself. And this is a really important one. This often unconsciously happens, and I want to make it a conscious step in our process. What are the resources we need on the journey? And I'm going to be a little bit of a parent, but also like, a lot of kids I've watched or been around the last few years liked Dora. Even my kid liked Dora for a while. And Dora is Dora the Explorer, a US-based cartoon that was on PBS for many years, but there's books, there's a whole, merchandise, all this stuff. But the premise of every single 30-minute episode, I think they were 30 minutes, was always the same. There's a problem. This is what, oh no, here's a challenge. And it would be broken up into, what are the 3 main steps to get to that big goal? So there's the big goal, but then there's the 3 kind of touchstones or big pieces that we need to think about. And then she has her cast of friends, one foe, right? But I think he's important too. And I'll come back to that. There's the backpack, right? So we always have the touchstone of the backpack. What are we carrying with us on that journey? Really being clear on that. These are some of the resources. There's the map. So this gives us the directionality of how do we get there? Where are we going? What does it look like, right? So we're looking for a green hill. So we all know we're looking for that. What's the first step? Giving ourselves those signposts for each of these is an important part of that. Then, like I said, there's this list of things to do. First, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and then I get to the end of the journey. And then important step that I had in every single episode was they have dancing and celebrating at the end. We did it, right? So we really want to hone in on that point of we did it. And, you know, and having each of these pieces is important. And for the friends, there's friends that are helping. They have different skills. They have different, you know, they're often helping a person and they might be able to chip in. She has her friend Boots, her sidekick. And then she has Swiper. And, you know, we think, okay, Swiper's a bad dude, don't want to hang out with him. But he's often there to help set boundaries, right? Like, hey, there might be negative things that come up in our journey. We need to plan for those. Who's going to be protecting our stuff or our things? But also it's a reminder, hey, do we need to say no? Can we say, you know, Swiper, no swipe, right? So this kind of energy of, do we need to put in some boundaries from people who aren't the right thing? So I really like that metaphor that we can start to use to resource ourselves. And one of the conversations I've had recently was with Laura Halpin, and she has been a great ally to, yes, I see some of you know her, has been a great ally in my life the last few years. And one of the things we were talking about is she works at Inclusive Life doing anti-racism work with Nicole Lee. And we're talking about how do we resource ourselves to do anti-racism work, right? So that's a thing that's a thing. What if we're doing something like social media, I'm sorry, not the social justice related issue? How do we do that work? We need the resourcing. We don't just jump in head first. I mean, some people do that. And if that's your way and that's working, great. But for some of us who maybe need to have a little bit more spaciousness, having this plan of how long is it going to take? What are the goals? Who, you know, trying to do something big and not having a partner, a buddy. A lot of times we have fitness buddies or a reading group or like that. Those structures give us the accountability. They give us the day-to-day structure, right? So you can join a reading group. In Albuquerque, I was part of a book club that I loved. And so we would regularly meet to do that. If we have a fitness class or like I interviewed Oscar Marchak talking about the Tai Chi class. That's a beautiful space. He's holding it. We can go regularly and so on. You know, and I've been dancing since I was 4. So I can understand the necessity of having someone who is on that journey who can hold that space and show you. So those might be some of the resourcing needs. It might also be the honesty. Am I really ready, willing, and able, or do I think I know it all? Because if we think we know it all, or that, you know, that might not be a good resource to take with us. It's going to hinder our journey, right? Even if we have a willingness to do it, and we don't always have the budget, are there anti-capitalist ways we can use to meet that need? By trading, by, you know, there's so many cool ways to make that need happen. There's so many resources out there. In fact, we're creating almost as much content in the world, blog posts, YouTube channel. Like there's someone out there who's probably already talking about it, doing something about it. You don't need to create it by yourself from zero. So can you find a resource at the library? Is there a free book club? You know, is there something going on that is low or no cost? You know, so I don't feel like these have to be barriers to us getting there. That we don't all have to sign up to a 10,000 pound mastermind or buy help from, you know, every strategist to get our needs met, right? We can't all afford to do those things, or we might not desire to do those things, but there are ways we can start to be clear on what those resources is. It might just even be having a frank conversation with your team, with your friends, with your family, saying, hey, I know this is what's happening in the world, or this is what's happening in my life, and I could use a little help like this. And coming up with, you know, I'm going through illness right now, and it would be great if these are meals that I can accept, or I love gift cards to this kind of place, right? We can be really clear on our asks and people might be able to come through. But before we start having the conversations and making the changes, it's understanding what those resources are around us and starting to do that research. And we don't have to have it all figured out. We just might have a lead to check with one person, and then that person, you know, it might trickle in, but in time we might find the right thing. But it's continually having space making space to pursue that list of resources. So I could speak so much about this, as you can tell, but this is a really important step. So tomorrow we're going to talk about building our team, and what I mean team, it doesn't mean if you own a business, great, but I'm just talking about the team that's going to help you with setting your stage, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the now practical ways we can turn this into our stage. And before I move on, well, actually, I'll let me share my screen. And I just wanted to share some of the resources that our speakers have given for this talk. So here is the recording from yesterday. So if you missed it, you can go to YouTube. There's a playlist. I've created a playlist right here, and the playlist is here. So if you want to check out any of the videos or all the speakers' talks, they're all here. You'll have that link in your email, and I'll send it again every day this week. Then we have some gifts. So the Unruly Woman, Christine Farr, is giving the 10 people in this event a session with her. So you'll go to the contact page, and you can contact her and directly ask to have that session. Catherine Creighton Crook has created a resource on audio. So you can scroll down on her website and you can get that audio that she's talking about, connecting with your body. That's a great resource. Here's Miranda Wildman, her limited edition art kit and workshop, a private workshop with her making art. She's given us a coupon code so you can check this out. And it's amazing. You get not only these amazing kit of one-of-a-kind items that she's been sourcing for these kits of this, and then you have time with her to create it. You can sign up to Oscar's class, and this is his information about the Tai Chi, the Qigong class. It's called Qigong, but the set is called Tai Chi, the Qigong it's called, anyway, he explains it better. I'll just leave it. But he calls it, his company's Wandering Tai Chi. We have Amanda, and besides the work that we talked about, the hypnosis, she also has this astrology book journal, and she does these wonderful astrology sessions. So she creates prices that are QT-POC friendly. So if that is something important to you, she definitely makes resources available. Then we have Maya Gobara. Here she's got a few resources on her Facebook page that you might want to check out. And I think that's everything. I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but I don't, maybe I forgot myself. Anyway, and then finally, which happens, believe me, it happens more than I think, more than I'd care to share. And then, of course, if you're finding value from this, I'd love for you to support me in buying a coffee, although I call it buying me flowers, because I like flowers. That's one of my love languages. All right, so back to all of you. I am here to answer any questions, and I'll stay as long as there are questions to answer.
I think that I'll climb in. So I loved the mind the gaps kind of conversation. And then as we pull in the resourcing and the art pieces, I was a little bit curious from the perspective of low capacity. Um, where can we kind of be more specific in our conversation about when you are really low capacity, having those conversations, even with the art, right? Like, where do we speak to low capacity and starting and beginning again and again, and even in the inquiry into these what resources do I need kind of conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I'm understanding for your question is, how do we begin that process? How do we begin to have those conversations?
Yeah, and where do we have on ramps even to consider that conversation and get into like art? I mean, moving into art when you're low capacity.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way so this is my experience, I'm going to only speak to that. I feel like a conversation can't happen at a fast space. So it has to go at the speed of the slowest person in that conversation. So we need to actually, like, when there's people talk, and I know I do talk a lot, talk fast, right? But then there's no space for someone else to come in edgewise. So sometimes we need to train people or talk to people or find people who are moving in a similar pace. That's one thing that's going to be helpful. Or, starting to make that discussion. Hey, it's moving really fast and I never get to do this. And having that, it needs to be slow and deliberate. We're not going to change a relationship if we've never been doing art to now becoming a full-time artist. That's not going to happen overnight, even if we wanted, right? Or the relationship with our money, or the relationship with our time, or with our partner. It's not going to change in 1 minute. So incrementally, what we can do, what can we do? And what that might look like is, for me, like 1% of our day is 14 minutes. Can we start to dedicate that kind of time, or even a smaller increment than that? It might be, as Miranda talked about, having the coffee. We probably all have a highlighter and a pen. And you know what I mean? If we have school-age children, we might have other art supplies like glitter or construction paper. Here in the UK, they call it sugar paper. You might have these kinds of things. You might have a coloring page, right? So we can start really small, and the intention starts to bring us more of those like items. And I'm not talking a law of attraction. If you believe in that, great, but I think it tends to be a harmful way of viewing the world. What I am talking about, yeah, take care, Greta, thank you. What I am talking about is not law of attraction, but you put in that energy, you put in that intention, and it starts to concentrate within ourselves. And I think Stephen Pressfield talks about that a lot in his War of Art or Art of War, whatever book it is, one of those two. He talks about that concentration that happens, and he's talking about the writing process. But here we can talk about this. If I'm committed to this, to improve my finances, or to bring art into my everyday, then you're going to start to see opportunities coming up that make sense around that. So you might see this cool set of, like here I'm looking at my Sharpie markers on my desk, and I might think, oh, can I do something fun with that? Right. So it might be something that you've seen, but you're seeing it with fresh eyes, and then something might spark something. And when we're having conversations with people, whether that be digitally or otherwise, can we create templates for ourselves? I love the idea of templatizing. So you're not having to have the same discussion from scratch. You have bullet points that might help you, and so on. So that might be, those are things I use. If I had to create every piece of content in my world, even how I talk to people from scratch all the time, it's exhausting. But if I have, when I'm writing an email, whether that be for business or personal, there are certain things I want to talk about, right? That is going to be like, even today, I created a bulleted list. And then I think, how can I reuse some of these points? So when we're having hard discussions, can we kind of use that as a model for us to continue to having those discussions, right? To build up that conversation. So great question, Mayor. I hope I answered it. That makes sense. Yeah. So I know it's time for people to go, and if you need to go, great. I intend to hang out just as long as it takes to answer all the questions for people who are present. So I'm here. And if you need to go, thank you so much for joining. All right, some of you are saying bye. Thank you so much. And I guess I will see you all in the next session tomorrow. Thanks again for being here.